Okay. So a lot of people have heard of the stages of grief: denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and acceptance. So in order to get through grief, we got to dispel the if onlys, because that's kind of denial of what really happened. What I mean by that is, to a toddler, oh, if only I were a little more quiet, or if only I were more pleasant to be around, then mom would have loved me more, for instance. So we have a lot of, it's basically a denial of reality, because you're like, oh, what ifs, what if, what if, what if? But they mean nothing, in the real world. Yeah, if they were true, sure, but that's the if, that's the rub. So we need to be able to accept reality, which means questioning your own what ifs. Like, how did you walk away feeling like that if something were this way, if they were only this type of person, then I could finally connect with the parent that I should have had? Because deep, deep down, that's what we really want. And you can logic it away as a grown-up, sure, and it totally is true. But the part of you that never got that loving, well-adjusted, safe parenting, will always long for that, and a part of you will always want your parent to be that person that you needed. You'll desperately want that. And until you figure that out, and realize that person flat out didn't exist. There are reasons for everything, but the bottom line is there are reasons why they were that way. But the bottom line is that our childhoods lacked these safe people that we were supposed to be able to attach to fully and connect with fully and would help us grow while they were staying present and not just getting dysregulated, getting upset for certain things that we do that trigger their own stuff. You know what I mean? So again, they have their reasons, but we have to accept what was and what we did not get. And the more you accept that, the more you can realize that you were enough this whole time. It just revalidates the new original story, but new, because your original story got flawed along the way by these people inadvertently telling you you suck. So you basically can get onto this new page of realizing you are full and you are enough. All the enlightenment stuff, they all talk about that, realizing that you had it all along, that you are it, you are the universe. You are completely whole and deserve to be here as much as anything and anybody else around. The whole universe, or God, whatever word and imagery you want to use, it coalesced into you being here, So you have every right to be here as much as any other person you see that seems so happy and free and full. You have that inside of you, as long as you can blast through that bullshit that was added on and blast and dispel it and say and question the very thoughts themselves, the very thought patterns themselves, no matter how much they feel a part of you. So that's a big one. And so let's talk about some stages. Let's talk about healthy angering. It's important to liberate this anger, residual anger from when you were a kid. We may not even know it's there, even as a toddler. As soon as it even began, it was snuffed out, possibly. Parents break the will of their kids. That's one of the biggest things, They're like God to a little kid, They hold all the chips, no matter how stupid they are, no matter how this or that. They own a lot of your personality, unless you can see through it, but feel through it, and on a gut level, feel that it's not true. So yeah, this anger may have been suppressed before it was even felt, which is wild. Like, how much power did these people have that weren't tested? They just have all this power over a whole lifetime. It's wild. Right. So for me, I wrote on the side, Dad, but Mom too, would have ridiculed that or berated that out of me very early on. So again, my will would have been broken early on. So to give you an example, and you can pause it and figure out which ways that applies. Maybe write them all down so you got a catalog. You need some info because a lot of this stuff is under the surface, and you know, you got to catch it while it's there and realize. Otherwise, it's just unconscious. It's your shadow, that some would call it. You know, it's just your light of awareness hasn't realized that and isn't like thinking about it. That's just fancy term for like what you're focusing on. So if I'm under the surface, I'm angry and it's bubbling up, but I'm not realizing that I think it was valid. I don't realize that it's like disproportionate to the moment. Then that's going on the whole time, and my light of awareness isn't on it. I'm not thinking that I got too upset until I realize, until I hit that point of illumination. So anger, let it out. For me, screaming into a pillow was a nice self-validating kind of way. Writing down all these things. You put a voice to the anger and you give it an outlet because it was a natural response to getting the shaft. And so you anger and you let that emotion kind of complete its cycle. You've finally validated that you're allowed to feel that emotion, that it makes sense to feel that emotion, even now, because you never got to. They would shut you down. They would throw you in. They would berate it out of you. They'd break your will. And that includes your will to be authentic and to be true to yourself and to go with how you feel. And that's very different from them just letting you scream at everybody and hit everybody. You can, as a parent, they would have sat there with us through that emotion because it's a big feeling, a kid getting all upset about, not getting to use the seesaw first or whatever. Those things are really big. Well, a parent would realize this kid's feeling a lot right now. Let me sit here and be with him, and I'll let him know that, lashing out or yelling or trying to hit somebody, but when our parents, the problem was that they would get dysregulated about it. They get pissed at us, and we'd see it on their face. And to a kid, that feels like, it's like soul murder. It feels like they've disowned you or they're off your team. And that's the one person, that you're supposed to be able to rely on. So this parent is just thinking they're being firm. But that kid sees the anger and they're like, I suck, That kid sees the anger and they're like, basically think that they suck. So it's very easy to get a complex. So not all of these things are necessarily their fault. And even the ones where we really genuinely had like asshole kind of parents, they're doing those things because they were probably done that way too along the way. So got to call a spade a spade. Yeah, so this is awesome here. Not realizing the magnitude of their parents' developmental limitations, many children of emotionally immature people think there must be a genuine, fully developed person hiding inside the parent. A real self they could connect to if only the parent would let them. And now, is that true to some degree? Yes, if they weren't being run by these programs. But that's not what you ended up getting. And for a lot of these people, like my dad, I've tried to spell a lot of this stuff out and help him break through his own stuff. And he's the farthest from being able to see it, or he just wants to struggle against it because that's all he's 75. His ego, his whole persona, his whole image of himself is hinged on these certain things that if he really did have all this festering anger under the surface, because he's very religious, that doesn't fit into his pious, like his gentle religious persona that he imagines himself as. So he rejects any anger, and it comes up all the time. That's what he did to me, was like have a look of disgust anytime. Heck, if I didn't hear something he said, he'd have a look of disgust at having to repeat himself, and he'd almost kind of bark it back at me. And the vibe was there, like, oh, he's going to jump off my team if I don't just shape up and be what keeps us in flow, in affinity. Oh, how we want that intact, warm, available, responsible, attuned person to exist. Exclamation point, like we really, really deep down do. And there may be just enough moments of responsiveness to keep the fantasy going, despite the vast majority of our experience to the contrary. So yeah, you might look at certain good moments y'all had where they were present and we're content, or we're happy, and y'all were laughing about something, you know. And you cling to that, because what else do you have when that's your source of life? That's, you know, from back when you were a kid. Like, it's still in there. That they're your source, and you deep down really want to impress them, even if you know logically that they're like not with it. You know, they don't know what we know about them and their emotions, pretty much. Oh, so yeah. So here's a good part too. Some people will call it wallowing if you like go back and feel these emotions. But what's wallowing? Them who might be, not them specifically, but a person, us, if we didn't work through it and let the emotion out and complete its little circuit, it's just running us in the background. Or it's, you know, even if you're aware of it, it can still catch you off guard before you even like notice it, you know? And who wants to live a life of constantly being on guard anyways? We're like, oh, let me catch it. Let me catch it. Good, I'm getting faster at catching it. No, if you let it out, then it doesn't bubble up, because there's nothing there to bubble. You know? That's the idea here. You weren't allowed to let it out back then. It's your time.